The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight, I got a very special guest, the solutional technician, Samuel Radcliff. Samuel, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Before we get started, Maria, that's my girl. Boston Celtics got a chance tonight to sweep the New Jersey Nets. They used to be the New York Nets years ago. But, yep, Celtics got a win, and that's our sports talk for the month. All right, back to wrestling. So, Samuel, where'd you grow up?
Where did I grow up? Well, I grew up in the mountains of New Hampshire, sort of the back country, if you will.
Nice.
It was nice, but like where a lot of these shows are, it's city life. I'm not used to like road patterns and stuff. In the back roads, it's so different.
Right.
The way of life is different too. Also, just like the way we talk, the way we sort of do our daily activities and stuff. It's
More laid back?
It's a little bit laid back, more focused on work.
Yeah.
So in ways when we relax is once everything is done.
Right.
And we're fine. Like it's almost like when you're in the ocean and there's a wave coming and you have to swim to the top, and you have to get up to the top before it reaches the shore. And once it's done, you can kind of take that breather back down.
Nice.
But that's kind of how we roll.
All right. That's a great way to say that. All right. When did you first see pro wrestling?
When did I first see pro wrestling? I actually first saw professional wrestling when I was in high school.
Wow.
And,
late compared to a lot of
very
people.
late,
Yeah.
And it was John Cena versus Randy Orton.
Nice.
At I believe it was it Extreme Rules? I think it was one of their I Quit matches. And I remember, I probably got the pay-per-view wrong, but I remember specifically it's the one where John Cena's handcuffed and Randy Orton's got him right up in the handcuffs, and he takes the kendo stick and goes right across the chest, and I said, that's what I want to do.
Nice.
But no, that's kind of where I first learned what wrestling was, and I'm sure it's not the cleanest way into learning about it, but
right.
It was certainly my entrance, to say the
Nice.
least. So.
Nice. Now, who was like Cena one of your favorites? Randy Orton one of your favorites?
Yeah, I kind of started with I got into wrestling 2016.
Okay.
Like the 2016 Royal Rumble was the first pay-per-view I ever saw.
Oh, wow.
So I actually watched AJ Styles' debut.
Nice.
And everyone's going like crazy. It's a big deal. And
It was a big deal.
And I was like, who is this guy?
Right.
Like I had no idea. So my way in was I guess you could say late, but in a way it was one of the best years to kind of get into wrestling if you were son of the younger generation. So I mean, John Cena was a big influence on me. I liked Randy Orton, but definitely a Daniel Bryan guy. Daniel Bryan, and then I really got into Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
I really loved Dean Ambrose for just how crazy he was.
Yeah.
It was unorthodox, to say the least.
Mox.
Yeah,
You know, he was Mox, but under a different name, and a lot of the WWE people didn't understand it.
Well, and you go to see some of his older matches, you're like, how the hell is this guy still alive? Like some of the stuff he did way back was crazy.
Right. Did you ever go back seeing that, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, did you look a lot of the early Ring of Honor stuff? Because those guys were like the pillars of that company when they first started, along with Samoa Joe and Loki,
and that's
Homicide.
And that's like where I got in. So I was WWE for the longest time.
Right.
Because that's how I got into and of course, when you first get into wrestling, what's the first thing you think of? Well, it's the WWE.
Of course.
So I got into all of the classic WWE matches and getting into like the Attitude Era, and then also sort of getting into like the debuts. Like I remember watching John Cena's debut maybe 50 times.
Right.
Then I watched Rey Mysterio's debut. But I stuck very much to just the WWE, I guess you could call it a bubble.
Yeah.
Because I never really saw any of the other promotions. And it wasn't until, of course, YouTube being the giant
Love
that it is
YouTube.
now, I remember just kind of looking through, and AJ Styles had just debuted, and I was just kind of trying to figure out what exactly who he was, and started to look into it. And that's when I sort of figured out the different brands, the different reporting groups, and then all of a sudden they're bringing up Ring of Honor and New Japan, and I slowly started to go down the iceberg, if you will. And I'm happy I did, because now I've known so much just by kind of making my way through and figuring this stuff out. But I mean, like, I didn't learn about that stuff until probably like 2 years after I really started getting into wrestling.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, like you said, some of the stuff they did back then. I mean, the cornerstones.
Yeah.
Just those were the guys. And
absolutely.
So it was a very long time between seeing them and learning why they were such a big deal.
Right. It must have been crazy for you, like you said, like you didn't know who AJ Styles was, and the place was going crazy for him. I know I was. I was flipping out because, like I said, AJ is a really nice guy. I met him so many times.
Yeah.
And to see guys at one level and then make it to the next, even though I had watched him on TNA for years too. It seemed like they got a lot of those guys a little late. Daniel Bryan, maybe not so much, but Samoa Joe, it took a long time to get there. AJ, I mean, they were in TNA for a long time.
And you saw them working with a lot of you see them they're working with like Roderick Strong and guys where like all of a sudden now they're in the WWE, and the fans are going, we're gonna have TNA 2000, and they're like excited to do. We're gonna see a rematch between them, and it's definitely a crazy environment. From 2016 to 2019 was so cultured for wrestling.
Things changed a lot.
Yeah.
In those 3 years.
And so that's why I say that, like, for the younger generation, that was probably the best time to get into it. Like, I got into the Cruiserweight Classic when that was.
That was good too. Yeah.
That was probably the biggest reason why I watched the WWE was for the Cruiserweight Classic.
Nice.
I looked up to all of those guys.
Right. When you said, too, that you watched the debuts, I actually was just watching Macho Man's debut over the weekend, Saturday morning. I'm like, I want to watch the Macho Man's debut again. He was one of my favorites. All right. Was some of your friends or family into wrestling, too, when you were?
Well, and that kind of is why I had such a late opening, is where I grew up, like I said, we focus a lot on work.
Right.
And I grew up in a community that was a lot of, like, it was all like lacrosse, soccer, football, baseball. Wrestling was really off the table.
Right.
Like, no one really talked about it. I had a few, like, I remember it's my sci-fi teacher. I had a science fiction teacher. You could think it was like a laid-back class. We talk about Star Trek and Dungeons and Dragons, but he taught it like an AP course. So it's kind of like doing like advanced physics for nerds.
Right.
But I remember he was such an awesome teacher, and he was a big wrestling fan. So when he found out I was doing it, because I got into wrestling when I was 17.
Oh, okay.
And so being 17 years old, I was still in high school, and I mentioned, I'm getting into this stuff, learning how to do it. And he was like, that's great. And I was like, yeah, have you seen any of the new stuff? It's like, I haven't seen that stuff since the 90s.
He was an Attitude Era guy?
Yeah, Attitude Era guy.
Yeah.
But
I think everybody was
well,
back then. 10 million people watching
wrestling. It was hard
wrestling.
not to be.
Exactly.
Seeing all the different characters running around.
And for nothing, the TNA and stuff too. That brought a lot of fans too.
Like the early 2000s, and just those places got a little bit more of that recognition. And I mean, for me personally, it was so out of the blue though. Like when I was with my parents, and they were like, so. What are you doing on Saturday nights? Like, where are you going? Why are you out late? And I said, well, I'm professionally wrestling. And they said, what are you doing? What do you like? My father had actually had helped out at the WWE in the Connecticut branch up in Stamford.
Oh wow!
And so he so he knew the business,
right?
And he took me aside and he's like, I hope you understand what you're getting yourself into here. Right. So because he'd been around that, he's a television broadcast engineer.
Oh, nice.
So he's been around these figures for a long time.
Right.
And so he was like, I hope you understand what you're doing. Like this isn't just a hobby at this point.
Right.
And so it was kind of like no one really expected it. When you look back at the class photos, you don't see like most likely to be the world heavyweight champion. Like that's just wasn't something that everyone saw out of me.
Right.
But now that I'm here, I mean, I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that's gonna. How about? Do you remember the first show that you went to?
Yes. So I remember the first show I went to was, let's see here. It was a show in Manchester, and it was late 2017. And it was like my first time seeing wrestling. And I remember I just kind of looked it up because for me personally, I was like, well, I can't afford, WWE tickets. Like, I was just a kid at that point.
Right.
So I remember going to my first show and seeing it, and it was so surreal because especially with that promotion, it was very storyline heavy. So me walking in there brand new, I really had no idea what I was looking at.
Right.
And
it was WWE.
It wasn't WWE.
Oh, it
was different. It was a different promotion.
Oh, okay.
But I remember just seeing that one and then going to a few other ones and being like, oh, okay, this is what it's like. Because it was very different from WWE.
Right.
I was used to a guy just staring at me through a camera the whole time. But like with this one, they interact with the crowd. They even got into the crowd and were dancing around. And, it was kind of like... It's kind of like in movies where you see like the Wild West and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and so there's a bar fight that starts up, and as soon as all the chaos starts, that's when the new guy kind of just saunters in the door.
Right.
And I was that new guy, and everyone just stops and freezes and looks at me, and there's chaos all around.
Nice.
So I definitely remember my first few shows going in, kind of having no idea what was going on, and slowly learning through time what exactly it was that wrestling is.
Right. Does anyone or anything stand out from that first night, though, that you went, wow, I like that guy, or I like that move, or anything that made you walk out of there going, I can't wait to go to my next one? Because every show, I believe, should leave every fan going, I can't wait for the next show. And a lot of shows, as you know, that doesn't happen.
I can't.
Unfortunately.
I can't remember a specific person or a moment. Actually, I do remember one moment. There was a guy who came out and he was just like, it was the first time I'd ever seen someone in a mask.
Nice.
And it was like a really colorful character, and just the idea of just someone being in a mask but having that much personality. Right. Because I grew up, I wanted to be a stand-up comic when I was a kid. So I remember just like a lot of the comedians that I focused on, facial expression was everything as part of storytelling. And I could see that in the wrestling world too, where like facial expression. So seeing a masked wrestler, I mean, who wasn't on TV, because like I said, I grew up watching, or I started in watching Rey Mysterio. But even then, Mysterio, you could see some of his expression.
Right.
It wasn't like Sin Cara, who I didn't really focus too much on. But just seeing someone with that much character, and you couldn't really see his face at all. Yeah. But still, like, the crowd went crazy for him. And it was like, it wasn't necessarily like this idea of like, he's going to be the champion. You could kind of see that he was like, he captured the people. Right. And that's what
without the facials, too.
Without the facials. Like it was all body expression. It was all like, and he was just yelling, going crazy. And I wish I could remember what the gimmick was, because I can't. But I just remember it being like the whole crowd got in on it. Right. And that's kind of what captured me into it more, was the idea of like of getting that crowd to just, they all cheer for you. Right. And they all focus in on you. I thought that was extremely cool. Right. So that was probably the first thing that I ever really focused on or saw.
Nice. But, all right. Well, how about your first WWE show you went to?
First WWE show, I actually haven't been to one.
Okay, that's cool. That's good enough.
And I'll tell you why. And it seems backwards.
I don't go to many WWE shows myself, to be honest with you. I don't. I go to indie show. That's what I like.
Well, and that's fair. And I enjoy watching the indie shows.
Yeah,
definitely.
me too.
And that's kind of what keyed me in on getting to become a wrestler, was seeing how much more fun it seemed. Because the big wrestling shows were fun. And like WWE looked like fun, but when I went to the indie shows and you see them like I said, running through the crowd and getting that reaction, right? That just seemed like such a experience.
Right.
But the reason why I don't normally go to those larger shows is I actually don't like crowds too much.
Really?
I don't know if it's claustrophobia, but just being in a large crowd. I remember going to like the county fair.
Yeah.
And they have all the rides and they've got the carnival booths and everything. And it was like booth after booth after booth, and just this herd of people that weren't even moving, just
Right.
standing in a line, and you're like weaving through and like holding someone's hand, but they're like 3 people in front of you, so you could lose them at any second. They'd be
Right.
gone forever. And
At least that's what you thought, right?
well, yeah, and so for me personally, just being in those large crowds,
Yeah.
like I've never been to a live concert. I love many different bands, but
Right.
I've never been to a live concert because I'm just so, it's like anxiety takes over
Right.
me when I'm in those crowds.
Wow.
So it's a weird way to say it, because then at the same time,
That's interesting.
but at the same time, I'm hungry for their attention.
Right.
But it's like, well, I can't be one of you, and I don't know. It's weird.
I'm hungry for your attention, but stay over there.
Stay away, whatever
Stay
you
over
do.
there. That's funny. That's great.
but
that's
that's-
interesting. It really is, because I've never heard that before. So of a wrestler having like that anxiety. I'm not saying other ones don't. I just haven't, heard that.
Yeah.
So when did you know that pro wrestling was something that you wanted to do?
It was my first real indie show that I debuted at. So I started getting into wrestling when I was 17.
Yep.
And I started to really learn about wrestling from 17 until about 18, 19. When I was 19 years old, I started training at the Belltime Club with Bo Douglas. You know
Yes,
Bo Douglas,
Bo's the
everyone.
best. Bo knows. Saw Bo yesterday.
Yeah, he took me under his wing, and I knew some stuff, but I didn't know a lot about wrestling.
Right.
And so, and Bo's a great guy, because he, when he teaches it, he's just like, I went into the mentality of like, if I know something, just play it off like I don't know,
Right.
so I can learn the right way to do it. And he went, if you know the move, do it, and then we can correct it.
Right.
And so for the longest time, I was just like, no, I don't know it. And he's like throwing his hat all over the place. Like, I know you know it.
Right.
Just do it. And so I remember that February was the first Bell Time show that I went to. And I remember being there. I had like my training gear, and that was really all I had.
Right.
And I remember being there. We were only supposed to do like the doors and security, kind of as you do.
Right. Right.
And Bo just looks at me and goes, do you have your gear? And I said, yeah, I do. He said, go get your gear. So I went out to the car and I grabbed my gear and still had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
I didn't even know what was going on in the show. I didn't know what the card was.
Yep.
All I knew was at some point I was supposed to open the doors and close the doors and make sure no one went through them.
Right.
And that was all I was supposed to do. And so I was only about 2 months into training.
Wow.
And he put me with another student, a Quail, and we were the Belltime. I think we were the Belltime boys or the Belltime students, or we were something Belltime, and we were in a tag team battle royal.
Uh-oh.
And it was crazy.
Yeah.
Because we were just sort of, me personally, because I had been, like I said, for those first few years I'd been learning, and so I'd been meeting a bunch of people
Right.
from the business who were like, I was slowly getting to know who these people were, and they knew who I was and where I was coming from. And so when I was in that tag team battle royal, all of a sudden it's just like all those guys that were like teaching me the ropes were just there.
Right.
And it was no longer them just teaching me. It was like, hey, we're going to actually do this, and we're in front of people now.
Right.
And I remember coming out of that match. I wasn't in there very long, but I remember coming out of that match and being like, that was awesome. Because we were in Malden too. It was a great crowd.
Right.
And I think that night even, it snowed like crazy. Like it was a blizzard that night.
Right.
Like unreasonably winter weather. Like I love winter personally.
Yeah.
But it was like, even I was like a little scared.
Right.
To be honest. And I remember just that hour-long drive back home, and I was just like, this was awesome. That was an experience, and that really just because it's twofold. It's like it's the heat of the room.
Right.
Just it gets so hot in those rooms, and then just the noise too. It just blocks out all your other senses, and you just kind of go in without thinking.
Right.
And that sort of whiplash kind of just draw me back. Every single time, it just kept coming back.
Right. And they say the rush you must have got, like
rush,
coming out, is like must have been incredible.
Well,
that's cool.
Because I really didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew how to
Right.
be,
Right. No,
but,
I get what you're saying.
But like with
2
the whole,
months in, how much really could you know? You know.
And it was just a taste, but it was enough to be like, that
Right.
was some good coffee.
I was gonna say it may not have been a long time, but both thought enough of you that you could pull that off, which is great.
Yeah. And so
Who did you work? Like, do you remember who was in the ring with you?
So I remember many different wrestlers, and they were all teams. They were all different teams.
Now, did you both have to get eliminated, or just one, and then you both?
Just one of them, and then we were both out.
Right.
But the way it worked was, I guess, it was very weird how they worded it. But so if one person was eliminated, then the other one technically was. But they were still thrown out anyway.
Okay.
So it's like I think I got thrown out, and then my partner was like he didn't get thrown out till like a few minutes later or something like that. Like it was a little weird of a match. But I definitely the two that I remember the most was the Middlesex Express.
Love those guys, low boys.
Oh yeah, and the Middlesex Express, both of them were very key. To getting to the Bell Time Club for me.
Oh, really?
Because they met me when I was starting out.
Okay.
When I was really young, still learning how to be a wrestler, they met me, and I remember meeting them, and I remember because I was so worried about my physique because I was still in high school, and so I was more or less worried about my physique, and they just lifted up my shirt and was like, "You're good."
Nice.
And so I remember.
Was that Stephen Lust that said that?
Stephen Lust. But I just remember them being like, you got to get out there. You gotta get yourself out there. And I remember that show specifically. It was I believe Lust who eliminated me for that match, and it felt almost like, in a way, he was the one who's just like, we've told you. Now I'm throwing you out into that world. Right. And this is your entrance. So to me, that match and specifically and those guys mean a lot because they're really essential to what pushed me to get there. Right. And then also they were the ones to kind of welcome me once I was in. So
that's pretty cool. Especially now, these guys don't know this, but you wrestled Stephen Lust in a one-on-one match yesterday.
Yeah,
and you've been waiting for that for a while.
That was kind of the icing on the cake.
That is really cool.
UFO Wrestling.
Mr. Pat Dillon.
Pat Dillon, and I remember because I showed up and I knew I was like, we're gonna get, because I'm slowly working my way up. And I was like, okay, cool. So who's gonna be my next opponent? And all of a sudden, Pat's like, we're gonna put you with Stephen Lust. And I said, Stephen Lust. Oh, okay. Like it was just this like whirlwind of like rush of just like I knew who he was, but did he actually say that guy?
Right.
And am I actually gonna work this guy? And
that's awesome.
I mean, it was surreal to be able to work with someone who I looked up to.
Yeah. And someone that's helped you get in the business. Yeah. I had no idea that you guys were affiliated like that with each other.
I will definitely say last night he didn't hit me like he was training me. He kind of hit me a little harder than I thought he was.
Yeah, well, he's letting you know you're one of the boys now.
I'm sure it's out of love.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to say, I got to bring up his partner, Stephen Lambert.
Yep.
Is there a guy in better shape than him? No, I mean, there might be guys that are bigger and in good a shape, but I don't think anyone's in better shape than Stephen Lambert.
And it's just...
kid's unbelievable.
It's just with them together, too. It's a team that I just... Oh, my goodness. The chemistry they had.
And I love Chad Epic.
And yeah, with the whole group, just... You could not possibly have a match and shut Epic up.
Oh, never.
And keep one of them off. Like, even if you said it, they'd find a way
Absolutely.
to just make it a complete zoo, and it's so much fun.
It was great to see Steven yesterday, but I also got to see both of them Saturday night at the Proving Ground. And I hadn't seen Stephen Lambert in a while, so it was nice to see him. It'd been a couple of months at least, maybe even a year since I had seen him. I'd seen Stephen Lust. As you know, he wrestles singles a lot all over the place. But great guys, both those guys. So you trained at the Bell Time Club. Who else was in your class?
Well, that's the thing, is that the guys who I started training with aren't around anymore. Like they got into it and they were really interested. And I remember when I started.
When they dropped out?
Well, it wasn't that they dropped out. It's just like, I think everyone gets these different interests. Like, I certainly had that too.
Right.
And I remember there were points where it's like, is this really what I want to do? And is there like something else that I could be doing? And I remember I went up to Maine to wrestle. And it was probably the first time I'd ever been by myself. Because at this point, like the guys that I had been working with, I'm not sure. I think I asked, do you want to go to this, or do you want to?
And who was it in Maine? Larry?
I think it was Larry Show. Yeah.
Larry Huntley, NAWA.
Yep. And I remember going up there, and of all people, it was Alec Price who was there meeting me, and that was kind of the weird thing too. Is I got into the class when you had like Alec Price and Channing Thomas. And,
two guys that are killing it right now.
Oh yeah, they are all over the place. Alec Price especially, just rocking it. And Channing has been integral on like, Channing's really good at putting you in the ring and testing you,
right,
without making it a class, by making it an experience. Like nice. He'll get in there and you'll just go, and you more or less have to know what you're doing and think on your feet. And for that, I can't thank him enough, because to be honest with you, a lot of it is the thrill of sort of, it's almost like doing math. Okay. In a way. It's like doing math in your head. Like you get in this.
I'm from Lowell, so this is going to be hard for me to follow. No, I'm just kidding.
You get this major equation, and now you get to do the magic of like, well, is this outcome, and you slowly figure it out as you go, and then all of a sudden there's something else that comes in, so now you're figuring out that one. Right. By the end of it, you put it all together, and there's your solution, and that's kind of a magical moment there. Nice. And so to be able to learn how to do that, Channing was someone who was integral to that. So excellent. And those guys really, I mean, you've also got Tyler Klein. He was actually there last night too.
Oh, was he? Yeah. I didn't get to see everyone, but
yeah, no, and so like I kind of when I started in, those guys were starting to branch out. Like, oh, nice. I believe Alec and Channing were going off the top rope.
Oh yeah,
and getting out there. And so for me personally, I was just learning to be able to work with those guys who are getting in their feet wet. Right. It was an awesome experience.
And it has to be really knowing you picked the right spot, where now that you see these guys are all over the place. You know what I mean? Like you said, like Alec has been going all over. I actually hit him up 2 days ago and said, I got to get you back on the show before you're gone, because you're not going to be around.
He'll be gone forever.
And I know that, and he said he will. So I got to find some dates and send them to him, because I do want to get him on again before he's gone.
That guy's just all over.
He just had a match. I didn't see it. I just saw little clips of it against the Grim Reaper. I don't know if you know him. He's from the New York area and stuff. And he's really good. Reefer is incredible. He loves his Reaper. But I mean, he can work. And I saw little bits and pieces, and I sent Reefer a message saying, that kid's from my neighborhood, and he's from my area. And he sent back, he's like, that kid's gonna be great. And I felt proud, just because I know him and he's from New England, Alec. He's just killing it. Yeah. And Channing, he's not gonna be around much longer either. He's so good.
It's just like, and watching Channing is like, for him, even the way that he works, it's so articulate. Right. It's calculated. He always has a plan. He always has a way, like this grand idea of how he wants to get there, and he figures out a way to get through it. It's inspiring.
And he has a little European style to him too.
He does, yeah.
Which I like a lot. He's gone. He did a tour over there.
Yeah.
Somebody else just recently from around here did too. Randy Rivera went over went England, maybe somewhere. I haven't had a chance to talk to Randy, but it's pretty cool to see these guys going all over the place. And it's got to be encouraging for a guy like you.
Especially where, those were the guys when I was, coming up. Those
Right.
were the guys I looked up to.
Nice.
And to still see them, I mean, I still look up to them to this day for that reason, because they're rocking it.
I saw the best match I saw Alec had, and he was still brand new. He wrestled Benny Jukes on a UFO show. And that night it was Brian Malonis versus Chris Dickinson. When that match was over, I turned to my friend and said, "Who's going to follow that?" And then 2 matches later, it was Alec and Benny, and they stole the show. And Alec couldn't have been wrestling more than 10 months. And literally, I mean, granted, you know how wrestling, I'm sure they wrestled quite a bit before the show, the week's coming, but it still doesn't matter. Once that crowd's there, you still got to perform live. So it's pretty wild. All right, tell us about your first match.
Well, first match
Besides the one with Bo.
tag
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
Without the tag team.
Yeah.
I think the first match I did, singles, was against Bo Douglas.
Bo does that a lot with a lot of his students, which I think is very good because you must be not as nervous.
Well, it's intimidating.
Is it?
It's intimidating because you've got because of course now you're not really in that classroom setting. He's no longer your teacher.
Right.
He's your opponent.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference.
Right.
And I remember going into it being so nervous. Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? Is that gonna work? Can I do this to get that? And and he comes over and he's not even got his gear on yet. Like, I'm just pacing. We did this in a field out at oh my goodness, I can't even remember where it was. And I remember it had rained, so the ring was set up, and it was raining and thunder and lightning. So everyone went and ran in their cars, and I just slid under the ring because it was dry and hung out under there. But I just remember pacing and being so nervous, so nervous for that match. And he just looking at how casual he was in this. I mean, he's been doing this forever. He's been doing this so long.
Legacy from Killer Kowalski, man.
I mean, and when we had that match too, it was. I mean, yeah, I was new.
Right.
I was new, but I remember, I was just like trying to figure out, who I am and what can I do. And so I grabbed this wicker bag and I just shoved it full of random crap from the barn. So it had pieces of metal and chain and I just walked out to the ring with it and excuse me, and I just dropped it next to the ring and I never touched it again. Everyone in the crowd was so confused because they're just like, what's this guy gonna do with all that stuff?
Right.
And he never used it. But that was like one of the first times that I felt that immense pressure. Because I remember the first time, I just went into it full blown. I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't really get butterflies. I just went for it.
Right.
But that was the first time that I remember feeling nervous and truly anxious about going in and actually working, especially someone like Bo Douglas.
Right.
And having done that, I want to do it again. I want to do it so many more times.
Right. So you felt really good afterwards.
Oh yeah.
But did you say, "I should have did this"? A lot of guys will tell me they're like, as soon as you get in the back, everything comes to you and like, "Oh man, I should have did this. I should have did this. Should have did that." And then their opponent, who's usually a veteran, will go, "Next time, relax.
Next
you
time,
have plenty of times to do this."
Yeah, I definitely remember that.
I'm very interested in your headgear and your mask. Can you tell everybody a little about that?
This is currently the most dangerous weapon of
I'd say so. It looks dangerous.
We had a street fight. It was myself and Ike versus
Former guest here. Ike.
yeah, and versus Scott Ashworth and Doc Heresy.
2 guys that I need on this show. I'm serious.
And I'm talking, and you want to talk about a street fight getting out of hand? When this came out, it was game over.
Really?
But this is my mask here. I wear this out to the ring, and this kind of is pays homage to sort of the ironworkers and more or less 7 being ironworkers of Boston. But
Nice.
It was also the number of a company up in New Hampshire that I pay homage to. So
Cool.
and I'm a big welder. I work on cars, so that was where I kind of got into it.
Yeah.
But I also was.
Is that what you do for a living?
Not for a living.
Okay.
But it was something more of a hobby
Yeah.
for me, and so I was actually looking to become an iron worker at one point. That was what I wanted to do as
Right.
a career. And so so I figured, that's something that I really felt, because I think welding is an art.
It is an art. Definitely is.
It's one of those things that takes immense patience, but the most skilled people can pull off these fantastic, like I said, it's art.
Right.
Just the way in which you can turn metal, a solid,
Yep.
and turn it into a liquid.
Yeah.
And move it around. It's
wild.
surreal. So, I mean, I bring this out as sort of like, that's who I am. That's what I
That's
aspire
awesome.
to be. So, but yeah, it's we were doing a match out in Fairhaven, and it got out of hand when the mask came out.
And was that for NRG?
That was NRG. Yep.
Was that their first show?
That wasn't their first show.
Okay.
But that was. I remember we did a street fight and we showed up. And it was my first street fight.
Yeah.
It was a year of firsts.
Against Ash and Doc, too.
Yeah, and I remember just like, oh, what can I use? What can I use? And I grabbed the mask. I'm like, oh, I'll throw this on and I'll headbutt the Doc or Ash.
Yeah.
And that'll get it. And I did that, and I was like, great, I'm good. So I'll set the mask down. And then later on, we're doing something. And I see Scott gets back up and he's giving us 1 and 2. And all of a sudden he reaches behind him, like, what the heck's he grabbing for? And of course it's the mask. Yeah. And things got a little out of hand after that. I ended up going through a door. But
I think we have a question in that in a minute. We'll get to that. Actually, let's just jump.
Why not?
Why not? We'll get to that. Then we'll go back a little bit.
Yep.
Shay Kuchu. Shay Cash. Shh. Sorry, Shay. Gave you your real name. That's how you say it, right?
I wouldn't know.
Exactly, because you called by his wrestling name. How was your experience in the street fight against Doc Heresy and Scott Ashworth? And how was going through the door? So how was going through the door?
Well, like I said, it was pandemonium towards the end. Just getting into it was my first street fight. And I got into that. It's like, why am I fighting these guys? What is it about? And I remember being told, it's like, well, you're doing this because the guys who were supposed to be there said that you guys were better for it, and so they're throwing you into this. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, I got to find a tool. I got to, what do I do? And it's like, I remember someone says, like, it's a street fight. Just use everything.
Right.
Everything
Anything
around
and
you.
anything, yeah.
And I remember, like, we're just planning all this stuff, and then all of a sudden the bartender's just like, but you can't use the chairs. And we're like, well, there goes like 80% of our stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff there. So I remember in the middle of the street fight, and I'm getting my tail handed to me. It is a slaughter. And I remember, everyone's getting around of just getting chopped by fans. I mean, you saw Ike getting chopped by fans, but then it's funny too, because while he's getting chopped, I'm being dragged out, and there's people in the parking lot who took a smoke break during the show, and now they're giving me chops. And so, and when it came to the door, I guess I can talk a little bit about. So what happened was we all get hit by the mask.
Okay.
And unfortunately, this isn't really meant for. This is something I wear to the ring, but I didn't plan on using it as a weapon. It's something kind of as the last minute, like, oh, I could use this. Unfortunately, it's not really the best thing in the world. I ended up getting a nice gash in my head, and Ike also got a gash. But of all people, Scott ended up slicing his finger with the mask. And so, I'm getting set up for the table, and I'm trying to fight back, and it's not working. And all of a sudden, all I remember is being thrown to the ropes, picked up, and there's table here, and I just black out. And wow. it's like just that. I remember when I was young, I went biking, or bicycle riding, and I remember I was trying to go on this little pedestrian part of this wooden bridge over this river, and I remember just at the last second accidentally turning too much to the left, and I totally missed the bridge, and I don't remember falling. I just remember closing my eyes.
Right.
I have a huge fear of falling.
Okay.
And so And so I think what I did was I jumped up and my eyes just went black.
Right.
And I remember feeling this immense pain underneath my arm, and I landed, and my chest is hurting, and I'm really woozy, and all of a sudden I'm pinned, and I can't hear much, and then all of a sudden I'm coming up, and the ring announcer Simon Eddie's just like, "Are you bleeding? Is it you that's bleeding?" And I'm looking, and there's polka dots, like the Twister game.
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
dots.
yeah.
There's polka dots of blood all over the ring, and I'm feeling this pain in my arm. Like, maybe it is me. Maybe I'm the one. And all of a sudden, someone's like, "It's not you. It's Scott. Scott's bleeding." It's just complete chaos at the end of that match.
Yeah.
But, I felt that for a good 2-3 days later.
Really?
And that's something that we get a lot, is like, you get these mystery wounds.
Yeah.
Like you'll do a match, not even
And
with,
you won't feel it for days.
not
huh?
even with tools or anything. Like,
Right.
like you'll just do a regular, like a standard one-on-one, and the next day you're looking, it's like, how did I get that? Where'd that come from?
Right.
And why are there bruises all over my But yeah, definitely, it was crazy. It was just crazy.
I got to ask, did you get to talk to Scott before the match? And did you understand everything he said to you? Because from what everybody tells me, he's a very hard guy to understand. Yeah, you know.
He literally, like, he got in, and he's carrying his basket full of goodies.
Yeah.
And he's walking in, and he went to the bar, and then he comes talk to us, and so we're talking, and we're going over the match, and all I remember is me being like, I don't have anything for this, and he goes, use anything.
Right.
And I get this tiny crowbar, and I think the majority of our talk about the match is them making fun of this tiny little crowbar
Right.
that Ike brought in. It's like, what is this, a toothpick or something? Like,
Now, are those guys teaming in NRG? Like, is that like a regular thing, Scott and Doc?
because I was paying attention to it, and Scott had all these different teammates for a while now.
Yeah.
And I think he and Doc are a good team together.
I got to get down there and see a show. It's a long ride from Nashua.
It
though.
is
It
a
really
long
is. We were heading down one night, me and my buddy Dave, and then we looked it up on the GPS, and it was 2 hours, and we knew we were gonna hit traffic, and it was gonna be close to getting there on time. And I just looked at him and said, "You hungry?" You know what I mean? So I know I got to get that. Davey's a great guy, man, and so is Shay. You know, I got to get my ass down.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing with a lot of these shows, is that they're so far. At least for me, because I'm a New Hampshire guy too.
Right.
I live over in the Seacoast now, and it's like everything is an hour away.
Right.
Manchester's roughly an hour away. Wakefield, Mass, hour away.
NRG's 3 hours away, probably.
Even where I work now is an hour away. It's
Right.
Everything is so far away now. So I remember I did NCW, and it was in Bristol, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And Bristol kisses the ocean. Like, that's like, you look and you can see Mexico. So I remember going there, and then we had a show at NRG.
Yep.
And I drove from Bristol all the way to New Hampshire, and then drove all the way back down to Fairhaven the next night. And yeah, that takes a lot out of you.
That's something in wrestling. If you're going to be a wrestler, you should have a good car, because you're going to put a lot of miles on your car. That's for sure.
I think my mechanic's about to buy a mansion and a yacht.
Right.
For the amount of work that he's done for.
That's awesome. All right, listen, we only got like 13 minutes left. This is incredible.
Oh, my
This is like Todd Graham's first 3 times on the show. We never even got to the name game the first 3 times he was on the show. This is great. Let's finish up the fan questions. Maybe we'll get a few name game. This is awesome. Grayson Flax.
Okay.
Inspiration for your character.
That's
the masked wrestler.
That's the
huh?
masked wrestler.
I almost
That's
said
who
that. It was
That's who
WAW.
Yeah.
Yep. Grayson's a great guy. Man. I've never met him, talked to him, but everybody puts him over as one of the greatest guys around.
He is such a character.
I've asked him to come on the show, and hopefully someday he will. Yeah. Very talented kid, from what everybody says, too. Very talented.
So what was his question?
Inspiration for your character.
Inspiration. Well, I think we've touched a little bit upon that, just being being a welder.
Yep.
But also being up in New Hampshire. I mean, I don't know how much you've explored because living up in New Hampshire, everyone says, "Oh yeah, I visit New Hampshire," and it's like, "Oh really? Where'd you go?" "Oh, I went to Salem, New Hampshire, and I've been to like even Nashua." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. What about like Lincoln,
Right,
or
North
Concord?"
Conway, and
You know, maybe like the White Mountains, or
Laconia. Yeah.
You could even like maybe Dover, like there's so much more to New Hampshire, and that's not to say anything about down here, but I remember going up, and I'm a huge rail fan. I've always been a big train guy, and so I was huge on Operation Lifesaver as a kid, and I actually used to work at a railroad down.
Oh wow!
I volunteered, didn't work, volunteered. I pretended I worked. But just to be around steam locomotives has always been like, I love steam engines. I think they're the coolest thing. The physics behind how a steam engine works is so fascinating to me.
Yep.
And of course that term of like you can see the cogs turning in his head, you know.
Yeah.
I think I just have to like be a symbol of that in some way. So that was really where it all came together. Is just like, you know, what is it that really makes me tick? And it was like that's the whole idea. It's the power of a steam engine, with the accuracy and the attention to detail of a welder.
Nice. Of
a good practiced welder.
Excellent. All right, the mighty Bosch. Describe how he felt in his first 6-man at UFO. Was Mighty Bosch in this match?
Mighty Bosch was in that match.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He was great to see yesterday also.
He was good to see, yeah. Mighty Bosch, because I know he's watching, Mighty Bosch was just... You talk about someone who is a superhero, and Mighty Bosch was that guy. I remember, because it was me... I think it was me, Barnaby Combs, and oh my goodness, Sean Leader.
Nice.
Sean Leader, and I remember watching as Sean jumps on Mighty Bosch's back, and Mighty Bosch just marches around the ring with Sean, you know, doing everything he can to knock him down, and Bosch just walked around with him, and just. That was experience. You know, I think at one point Sean got thrown into me in the corner.
And you guys were all partners?
Yeah. But, I thought, but I guess at that point, not really. I think at that point we were just action figures being thrown into each other. That was such an experience to be in the ring with a lot of talent.
Yeah. And
like I said, you know, working with those guys is, especially the guys who have that experience.
Yes.
Like you can just see it's like it's a dance. It's them dancing in that ring, and it's the accumulation of the crowd feeding them. You can almost see them, just like see it in their veins, just yes, and just, you know, oh my gosh, that match especially was like, at the end of it, it didn't really matter.
Right.
It was fun.
Nice.
It was fun to be in, and like I said, just characters everywhere.
Right. And the Mighty Bosch has so much experience. I mean, we know, as you know, he wrestled and then left for quite a long time, and then came back.
But when he came back, he was everywhere.
Right.
And kicking tail every single place he went.
Yeah. No.
And still does to this day.
Great worker. Mm-hmm. I enjoy seeing him wrestle every chance I get. Delilah Hayden, what's your preferred style of wrestling?
So I like to be technical. I like submissions. I think it's the idea of how the body moves and the physics behind it.
Right.
Anatomy and physiology is one of the hardest things you could ever do to yourself. Learning that subject is so difficult. But to just learn how the body moves and functions is so... It's surreal to think of joints and how to manipulate them in ways that get your opponent to tap out, and like that's the whole That's my whole game plan when I go into a ring is how can I get this person off their feet?
Right.
And because like I said with the math, different things get thrown in, you still find that solution. How do you take those issues, those different roadblocks, and still make them
Right.
into, like, how do you take a roadblock and turn it into a bridge?
Nice.
And so that's why I love technical wrestling so much, is getting as close as you can to then hook them in,
Right.
and almost like a python, and just slowly sink your teeth in some ways. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. And being a Daniel Bryan fan, that
Yeah.
really, I mean,
Well,
he really, that's Daniel Bryan.
It is. And I
He doesn't do as many submissions now as he used
but
to.
Zack
But-
Sabre Jr. was someone I paid attention to.
Yeah.
And that was definitely someone who, when I saw
That's a
Zack
technician.
Sabre, when I saw Zack, that's the guy when, like, it's late at night and I can't sleep.
Yep.
That's the guy I watch.
Nice.
That's the guy I watch. And I just kind of try to figure out, it's like, how in the world did he get from where he was
Right.
into whatever.
So
it was?
where has he been, in Japan or something? Because I haven't heard his name mentioned in a long time.
Zack
He used to
was-
wrestle for Beyond quite a bit.
Yeah, he was. Well, he was in Japan, and then I'm trying to think of where he went.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's hurt or whatever, but I'm
And
sure he'll
that's-
be back. He's
that's possible.
phenomenal.
Yeah, and definitely with someone like that who understands
Right.
the characteristics and how to do that kind of stuff is something I really look up to, that level, because it's not just like it's not just that he has that in the back pocket. It's that he's in there. He's full on ready to go, so that whenever, like, as soon as one body part becomes available, he's right on.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool.
He's great in the ring. All right, last question is Ryan Whittier.
Okay.
What advice would you give to aspiring wrestlers?
I'll answer it. But in my humble opinion, especially with the guests that you've had on this show, I don't know, especially where I'm starting out, I don't know if I'm the best for this advice, but I will say this. From where I started to where I am now, the best advice that I can give is that if this is what you want to do, if you want to go day in, day out,
Yeah.
be with the guys and feel that energy and push for that goal, that ultimate goal, whatever it is,
Right.
wherever you want to go in this business, you cannot give up. And that may sound cliche, and you can say, well, that's John Cena's thing.
That's good advice.
I go back to, there were many times where, like, I'm in hour 2 of a 3 or 4 hour drive home, and just thinking to myself, that was a crap match, and I didn't get to do as much as I did, and it wasn't long enough, or I didn't do this, or I wasn't that. And even coming back from trainings, and, like, I just got yelled at for 2.5 hours, and what are you doing? You could have been an ironworker, you could have gone and done all this stuff, and there's been moments where, like, the clashing of your thoughts
Right.
takes over yourself, and something that I still battle with to this day. But if this is something you want, even at the level I've gotten to, I've had to fight those urges, and that's the best advice I can give, is that I think every wrestler at some point, and maybe even multiple points,
Right.
has had that moment of, like, is this really what I want to do? And the best thing is just, like, if you truly want this, if you see your name up on those banners,
Right.
you have to push for it.
Nice. That's good advice. I like that. All right, listen, we got about 3.5 minutes, right? I had written some other stuff down, but let me throw a few names at you.
Okay.
All right? How about the Hoods?
The Hoods.
Seeing you work for him. You work for Davey. Now, is Chris part of that too? Is Chris part older, or is it just
think-
Davey and Shay?
I think Chris is in there.
Okay.
I really do. Now, they're established.
Yes.
They're
They've been around quite a while.
they're guys where I'd say if you're on the other side of the ring with them, you're gonna have a tough time really figuring it out without them being full on in your face. Like they are guys who take over. They take what they want, and they truly put in your face, we're the Hoods. This is who we are. And I can't say that I've ever been in the ring with one of them and not had not only my ears just completely berated with them screaming and yelling and just this full-on energy, but then also just to get stomped down every single time.
Right.
I mean, it's the Hoods are. I mean, it's just like those are the guys where you avoid them in the parking lot. you just kind of tuck in. I hope they don't notice me. But
the new Proven Ground Tag Team Champion, the Hoods. All right.
Yeah.
How about Bobby Ocean?
Bobby Ocean. So I got to work with Bobby Ocean at where was it? MFW, I think so. And that was an interesting show too because
for Dan Marotti.
Dan Marotti. Yeah.
Okay, the late Dan Marotti.
The late, yes, of course. And I remember working with him, and it was this weird show because it was a private show.
Yeah.
And by private, I meant it was for only a select few people. And this is how great wrestling is. It was for a private show, about 6 or 7 people, and they were all the way in the back, far away from the ring, as far as they could be. But working with him.
Well, you kind of wanted him to.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, I had to.
Well, and no, working with him was, I mean, just fast. Oh my goodness, fast.
Hard hitting too, because he's stiff, isn't he?
I mean, I would say a few times I was like, oh, okay, this is how we're playing.
Did I make him mad?
but no, it was so great to work with and to learn from, and Bobby Ocean's definitely one of those guys where like I got out of that match and I was like, oh my gosh, what was that?
Nice. He is a great guy too. How about Lumberjake?
Lumberjake. We had a little bit of a run-in with Lumberjake not too long ago.
Yeah.
And he seems friendly, but he doesn't hit friendly.
No, he doesn't, huh? He's stiff too? He's a big guy.
He got me up with a huge slam, and I just remember the wind all the wind gone. Just whoop, and I'm like I mean, but to see him with the crowd, I mean, he's got that friendly nature. I'm sure he's a great guy if you don't, kick him in the face.
Listen, we're going to have to get you on again because I would like you to plug your socials or maybe an upcoming match soon.
Yeah. Well, upcoming, I mean, I can't think of anything yet, but that will come down the pipeline.
Okay.
Samuel Radcliff on Facebook, as well as Not a Potter, but a Rad on Instagram. Come and find me.
Sam, thanks for coming on the show, man. We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Guys, we're out. Go Celtics. Peace. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.